on my hands, clap on my hands. And he won't let me dance, no, the devil won't let me. Clap on my hands, clap on my hands. And he won't let me dance. Well, the devil won't let me stomp on my feet, stomp on my feet. And he won't let me be, no, the devil won't let me stomp on my feet, stomp on my feet. And he won't let me be. But I'll run away. I'll run away with you. I'll run away.
And a very good evening, everybody. Welcome into your box seat, brought to you in association with Sweetloo, standing at Woodland Stud. Some of that action from the last week in harness racing, sensational. Craig Thompson, Alexandra Park, multiple Group 1 night, and a very enjoyable one at that evening to you.
Yeah, evening, Greg, Michael, and the viewers as well. It was a fantastic night. Many records. Diamonds Day, I must touch on too, Greg. I thought an outstanding day on Sunday. I think what it did do is it's given us a little bit more of an inclination where these favourites are going towards the jewels, because Bonnie Joan was unbelievable in winning, obviously, the 3-year-old fillies race. Of course, Eamon Maguire stepped up now. He's 9 from 12. It was a great day, and I think we'll talk about that in the next hour. Yeah,
looking forward to that. Michael, you suggested on the show last week that we basically could replay it in a couple of occasions, and you're absolutely right. Al Mack was very, very good again, and of course, Enhine. Evening to you.
Yeah, evening, boys. Nice to get one right. Hi to everybody at home. I hope the week's going well. Yeah, it was pretty much Groundhog Day at Alexandra Park, with that glaring exception of the Rowe Cup we'll look at shortly. The other thing we've got for you is an interesting question. Got a question for you at home, and we want you to answer it as unemotionally as possible. That's coming up in the next half an hour.
All right, looking forward to all of that. So what's ahead for you?
Just ahead on your box seat, a Temporale departure from favourites taking the Group 1 spoils, thanks to a cool drive by the Iceman. The Hopes continue to win Group 1s on the trot, and there's been a shocking theft in harness racing. We catch the culprits red-handed.
So plenty to get through. Let's get straight to the Can-Am Rowe Cup. Yes, the 99th running of this marvellous 3,200 metre event. Whilst there was no superstar on paper anyway, it still ended up being an exciting contest. Let's get Aaron White to bring them home.
Prime Power Bordeaux, Habib Diaby, quite a moment. Here I come, looking to drive through, and Temporale deep on the HR Fiskin, passing lane, 100 to go, they line up. Habib Diaby, Temporale dashing through on the inside. Temporale will get the Rowe Cup for 2017 over Habib Diaby. Very tight third, Wilmer's Mate and Bordeaux.
Talk us through the run, because he really made his own luck early, didn't he?
Yeah, he made the race for himself when he stepped away so well and got him behind a couple of good horses to follow. And Blair's mare just ran out a little bit in the straight to give us enough room to get through without touching a marker peak.
Yeah, well, nice work. He had an issue with that last week, as we know. This guy's really developed into a pretty good horse. You took him to Australia. Do you think that was the making of him?
It certainly helped, you know, and I had a lot of help on the way, but it certainly helped him, and he's certainly matured and developed, and he's a nice, strong horse, and I think another 6 months on him, he'd be even better again. But yeah, so we'll see.
You've won your 5th Rowe Cup tonight, and with this guy's natural progression and the way he's gone on with it, it's probably not over for him either. He's got a lot ahead of him, hasn't he?
Oh, you'd like to think so, Greg. You know, like I said, he's a big horse, and he sort of keeps developing, and yeah, so, and like you say, he's only 4 and only just started, so no problems at this stage of his career, so hopefully it stays that way.
A couple of notable owners involved in this horse. That bloke Risley's had a pretty good run over the last couple of years.
Yeah, you got to get him in, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, he certainly adds a bit of luck to it, and dinner on the table for a little bit longer too. Suzanne's in this one.
That's a big help.
Yeah, it certainly is. Congratulations to you, Tony. Well done.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks very much.
Yeah, A.G. Herlihy getting the right run, very much Michael reminiscent of his Auckland Cup win with Gotta Go Cullen, getting the right run in the right race.
And Comedy Lad, his first Auckland Cup win back 1986, or an awfully long time ago. Look, I think maybe I thought, and I think a lot of people probably thought, looking at the price, Greg, that this might be a year too early for him, but beautiful drive. It's one of those things, Tony gets the huge raps for the drive, but there probably wasn't a lot more he could do than sit 3 fence once he lobbed there, but he's so good at those 2 mile races. He's got a lot in front of him, this horse. Sprints past some pretty good horses without any champions, but he's only 4. And when you consider the only other 4-year-old to win it in recent times is Mon Bay, you know, you're in exalted company here. Exciting times for New Zealand trotting, because we have Mon Bay and Speeding Spur coming back. Le Monde was excellent there. Obviously, Wilmer's mate's got a stack of talent. So's Mark Cooler back at the trials yesterday. So the new wave has clearly crashed onto the beach. How good is Temporale? Look, he's no superstar yet, but he has a lot in front of him, Craig. There's a lot of things to suggest he's turning into a very, very good horse. And Tony Herlihy, no Group 1s for nearly 4 years, all of a sudden 2 inside a month.
It was a good year for him, wasn't it, to be a 4-year-old, because with the lack of Speeding Spur and also Stent, no Master Lavros, and obviously with Mombay out, 4-year-olds won it last year, and as you said, Mike, only 2 in the last 40 years, so they don't win it really, but this was his year. I mean, I think the trip to the Breeders' Crown really made this horse. At 2 he was frail, at 3 he was weak, but he was doing it on ability. I think that trip made him. He's come back, of course, he won the Green Lane Cup, so the form was there going into this race. I thought probably the Anzac Cup run was fair, a nice 4th, but he got the right trip, and as Michael said, up the passing lane, never went round a horse that won in the race. He only paid $22,000 for him, so he wasn't an overly expensive buy, but he's going to get that back in twofold. With the Jules only 4 weeks away, and Mark Cooler having a trial this week, he hasn't been on the scene for a long time, Greg. He's going to start near second favourite for the Jules.
Yeah, look, a deep family as well. The Rob the Nest family, of course, that's the Don son of the Don, and many other very well-performed trotters. Let's go back to the start, because this is where he won the race. Manners, the 4, Prime Power off the Unruly, Wilmer's Mate off the Unruly, both put in a long hop, but trotted, and he was able to get out very, very quickly here.
And the remarkable thing about that, Greg, is a lot of his racing last year was from behind the mobile, because obviously he raced in the 3-year-old races, and B, there was a 10-minute hold-up to this race. Totally unavoidable, nobody's fault. Horse lost a shoe, needed it tacked back on. They did the right thing. You can't just scratch a horse because it loses a shoe. But the 4-year-old, who had the least experience from the standing start, actually handled that hold-up better than the rest. So, beautifully mannered horse, that's going to stand by him later in his career. I think reverse the runs in Pid Le Monde, where he is, he probably wins too.
Absolutely.
Maybe, because the week before he couldn't run down a Bibty Ivy. So, look, a lot to like about him. He's a really nice horse, gets over the ground beautifully. A couple of funny stories out of the ownership, as you mentioned in the interview. Kevin Risley also owns Lenny the Shark and part of Lazarus. Well, that's just a remarkable series of events. Kevin's always been a successful owner, but all of a sudden he's got 3 superstars, as we saw a couple of years ago with Charlie Roberts. You can go a long time with good horses, then all of a sudden, bang. Dean Biddlecombe's on the board at Alexandra Park, and what they're doing is, we can't emphasise enough what they're doing, fellas. I mean, these buildings are going to make Alexandra Park and Northern harness racing sustainable for decades. So Dean's on the board, loves this horse, missed the race because he had a knee operation, badly timed knee operation, but the good news is Temporale didn't have a knee operation. It was more important he was there than Dean. So Kevin gets a lot of success at the top end. Dean's part of something at the club which is going to be really successful, and this is one of his first really good horses.
And of course, Suzanne in as well, and Doug Donaldson, who
travelled 3 hours to get there. Of course, he's been in a few horses with Tony in the past as well, but the race was won at the start, boys. He actually, when I watched the replay 3 or 4 times, I didn't pick it up on the night. He actually bounded forward as the tapes were released. He actually got a bit of a flyer and put him a length in front, and that got him into the trail behind the right one, eventually 3 deep.
What about the overall time, Craig?
Relatively slow. I mean, I think 2011 was I Can Do's its win, where they went a similar time, but 4.8 for that time of the way the track is at the moment wasn't overly quick. But hey, you only beat what's in front of you, Greg, and times are relevant if you get the win. And it was a good win, but as I say, there was a lot of horses missing from the last 3 years.
Let's hear from those drivers in behind Temporale. Well, with the lap to go, Blair, you probably thought, this is mine.
Yeah, we're in the right spot, Greg, and you know, we had our chance, mate, to be fair, and you know, she travelled beautifully through the run, and if not just a little too fierce through the middle, but you know, we got a chance up the lane, and you know, Tony found a gap up the inside, and he's too good for us.
Pretty bright future though, when you consider the number of starts she's had and what she's gone through in her life. There's still plenty to come.
Oh, for sure, mate. You know, she's very lightly raced, and you know, I think it was only her 5th or 6th run this time in. So you know, full credit to her. She's doing a super job, and you know, hopefully the future hold good things for her.
Dexter, he just keeps on improving this horse, and he was pretty brave tonight.
Yeah, it was a great run, Greg. Probably missed his opportunity to start, be a little bit slow away, but yeah, great run afterwards, and you know, really stuck it out.
Did you have thoughts of potentially winning it as you came off the back, or was it the fact that he had to sit parked on what was a pretty good last mile?
Yeah, well, he was travelling good into the last bend, and I just gave him a wee tap up halfway around it, and you know, he really pressed on with the job and sort of had Prime Power beat. But I knew those, you know, obviously Sticks was on his back and would come with a good run. But You know, I wouldn't say he got tired. He just the other one's a bit quick, and they probably got softer runs than him as well.
Davy's 4-year-old mare, she's gone pretty good.
Yeah, she's gone good, Greg. Just come to the end of it the last bit, but she won a good race.
Ricky, it looked like you were in the right spot, probably about 1400 from home, but then she had to sit out there on her own.
Yeah, well, she had to sit out for the last sort of 800 of the race, but hey, she's a good little star, and like turning for home, she was still travelling okay. She got right up beside him, but the two on the inside sort of popped through. You know, you couldn't be more happy with the run, really.
And that's it for her. Her career ends tonight, but gee, she's done some great things.
Oh, definitely. She's been a lovely little mare, really. You know, when she come back from Australia, racing over there, I didn't think she'd make it in New Zealand, and she just went on with it, really.
Another great performance from her tonight, and she deserves the matron paddock that she's headed to.
Yeah, dead right. Yeah, she should leave some nice foals.
She should. She's from a deep family, the Javerna family, of course, and quite a moment bows out with a brave performance there in the Rowe Cup. Right, let's move on to the Messenger Championship, where Lazarus came up with barrier 1, of course, had the race at his mercy from basically the time the barrier was drawn up. Let's hear Aaron White bring him home in the Dawson Harford and Partners New Zealand Messenger.
From Waikiki Beach, bet out of Al, down the outside, then to a Golden Goddess. Lazarus held together, and he'll pick up his 12th Group 1 and do it effortlessly again. Waikiki Beach second, Golden Goddess third. All the smarties are driving past me suggesting, what am I going to say to you tonight, Mark? Tony Hurley, he had a wry smile on his face, but once he drew barrier 1 and there was never really going to be a lot of pressure, it was more a case of what time he'd run than whether he'd win. And I know that's hard for you to sort of comprehend sometimes.
Yes, that's right. Well, you know, probably when the draw came out, I was kind of hoping he might have drawn bad because he, you know, made it a bit more of a race. But once he drew 1, it was always going to, you know, look like lead and win.
Mark, how do we put this whole season into context? Because what he's been able to achieve, probably in the last 20 years, only Christian Cullen's got anywhere near that. So it is quite remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right, and that's the path he's sort of taking and the way he's looking. He you know, he looks exactly like Christian Cullen.
Okay, let's talk about what he does from now. How long does he have out? And his logical goal is the New Zealand Cup, but there is still Perth potentially on the radar.
Well, yes, he'll have a probably 6-week break, Greg, and then resume and probably follow the same sort of format we did last year in preparation for the Cup, and you know, all going well, he'll be there.
Yeah, we know that pathway was the perfect result, and we'll see that very shortly. He won his 7th Group 1, Michael, for the season, completed that 10 seconds slower or thereabouts than what Field Marshal did the year before.
Look, and it does, for people watching at home, it gets a bit monotonous, I mean, because he's so good, and that was a Group 1, but we all pretty much knew it was going to happen. Maybe there was a 10% chance something could go awry, but Craig, it's exactly as everybody predicted, not experts or anybody else, just people watching at home.
Well, it's like Winks, isn't it? It's like Winks. People expect him to win, expect her to win, and it happens. All you can do is line up and beat what's in front of you. I mean, the barrier draw won him the race. Had he drawn maybe 7, there would have been a little bit more intrigue into it because tactics played their part. From this race, they went 200 metres, they were lead trail, they were always going to run in this position, and that's how it formulated. But good on the club, they held the race. The best horse won. He's got 7 Group 1s to his name now. 15 starts, 12 wins, 3 placings, 5 Group 1s in New Zealand and 2 in Australia. I mean, Christian Cullen had a wonderful season, but I want to see this horse come back and do the same next year, Greg. I mean, as a 5-year-old going to win another New Zealand Cup, I don't think he'll win it by 10 lengths like he did last year, because we've got up-and-comers like Heaven Rocks coming through and a few of the stablemates as well. But for me, stellar season, and he's just an absolute athlete.
And just let's talk about stablemates, by the way, guys. Waikiki Beach won't race in the next 2 weeks. He'll head to the Winter Cup, which is the 19th at Addington, and he's definitely heading to the Jewel. So there's rumours he's heading to Australia, not yet. Golden Goddess is heading to Australia next week. She goes to Melton and she races on the 13th and the 20th. 12th and the 20th. Then they are retaining the option to come back to the Jewels. So she is very much still in play for the Jewels, because Mr. Mojito, who Mark formerly trained, is now trained by Kieran Manning, owned by the same people, is coming back for the Jewels, Mervyn Meg Butterworth. So there's a very good chance Golden Goddess could get back on the plane and be back here for the Jewels. Don't not factor into your Jewels equation. I thought the run of the race, outside the big three, because we know they're open class horses, was Bet Out of Hell.
Yeah.
I mean, Anna Donnelly's had a magic season. She's done a great job with horses who may not be that good, but this one might be the different one. He might be a good, genuine open class horse, and I hope they can retain him.
Can I ask you a question, boys? Because a person asked me a question yesterday, and I'd like to get your answers on it. Obviously, he won the New Zealand Cup by 10 lengths, and he went to Australia, got beaten over there. But do you think he's in the same sort of form, winning the Taylor Mile and the Messenger, that he was in going around in November? Or do you think that maybe he's just had a very tough season and he's come to the end of it?
Oh, no, it's really hard to line up because of the time he ran. A
Well,
horse of his calibre can run home in 54 seconds. It's hard to say that he's not, but it's also hard to argue that he is.
We've got a page of stats, so we can look back at his season and see exactly what has happened with Lazarus this year. And we've also got a chance to look at some of those videos. And we've got that video, the New Zealand Cup Day video, and it's so good. Here's the stats. As Craig said, 15 starts, 12 wins, 3 placings. Now, this was where it gets interesting. There's the Group 1s, and you knew that because you were watching. All the defeats came when he was racing from behind. The Miracle Mile sat on the 1-1. I believe he underperformed in the Miracle Mile on his best form. I don't think we saw the best version of him. Then in the Ballarat Cup, he was driven slightly differently. And then early in the season, he lost a race at Addington where he galloped away and came from behind.
And he probably would have won the race had he got a gap.
So the defeats, all 5 career defeats have come when he's been driven from behind. So I think he's at a best when he gets that big truck train thing going. He gets his momentum up, like the New Zealand Cup, and he just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, and you can't catch him. But once you get in behind on him, does he have the ability to change up and sprint clean over top of horses? Maybe not. Let's look at some of those wins. Mission complete, as we say there. Now this is the Flying Mile.
Now this was first up since the Cup Carnival, and he wasn't at his peak here, I'm sure of that.
I'll tell you what I think happened. As honestly as I can from all my conversations with Mark, I think they gave him a break after the New Zealand Cup and they struggled to get him back to his peak a lot of the time after that. Then he went to the Victoria Cup. Now he wins this very easily, but there was a schmozzle at the start. The real winning margin here might be 2.5, 3 lengths because a lot of horses were out of play, but Major Crocker's gone on with it, subsequent, and it was a very, very quick time. So that's a good win. But I still don't think we've seen the New Zealand Cup version. The margins start to get smaller and smaller. This is the Chariots of Fire. He holds out, he's in front, and he holds out Waikiki Beach. There's a moment here, Waikiki Beach out of the 1-1, where you're thinking Waikiki Beach can beat him. And it's almost like he's waiting for these horses and they're getting to him, and then he goes on with it again. In saying that, when you watch Mark's hands throughout all these races, boys, Mark knows he has these races won, so he doesn't go for him. So the disappointing run, I thought, was the Miracle Mile, which came after that. Then this fella.
This was blistering.
Well, this is a run where he's come from behind
yes, exactly
to beat Heaven
right.
Rocks.
This is the strength, and we know how good the leader is. So maybe, boys, next season this will be the thing they try differently, which will be a few more attempts from behind.
Well, I think also a lot of them he's drawn to lead, so he's used the advantage of having the draw.
And why wouldn't you?
And why wouldn't you? And get the easiest possible run. I think, Michael, in a lot of those videos, I wonder now he's being a stallion and being a 4-year-old, where he's just having to do what he has to do. You know, I think he gets to the front, he thinks he's got the race won, and maybe they close on it and it flatters him a little bit. Now, I think if Waikiki Beach had gone another 100 metres, I don't think he would have got any closer. Because I think he just does what he has to do.
The next week they went a full lap and he didn't get any closer. Yeah, they got closer but didn't get past him. So that was an amazing season. Had he won the Miracle Mile, we would be saying as good a season as we've ever seen. But here's the question for you. The Australians this week, and you'll see this later on, Lenny the Shark wins the Bulleye Cup at Menangle. And because they've seen that and they've seen him beat him in the Miracle Mile, there's a groundswell of opinion among the Australians that Lenny the Shark has proven he's now better than Lazarus. Because the last time they met, he clearly outpointed him. I don't believe that's correct. I think the facts, get rid of the emotion. Emotion's nonsense. The facts would prove over the season, Lazarus has had a longer season, a better season. Now, Lenny the Shark has been beaten in some poor races by horses like Bling It On. He may not have been at his peak, but I think the only times Lazarus got beaten was when he wasn't at his peak. He underperformed on the Miracle Mile on his other performances. So for you at home, be unbiased. Who's better in your mind? Who would you back to win a New Zealand Cup or a Miracle Mile? Lenny the Shark or Lazarus? And I went through this detailed. I've seen every race that both horses have had. Lenny the Shark has been beaten more often in more inferior races by greater inferior horses. When Lazarus was beaten, fresh up, gallop away, willing to forgive. Other time he was beaten by Smolder in the Ballarat Cup, beating home Lenny the Shark, and the other time in the Miracle Mile when beaten by Smolder and Lenny the Shark. So if the Ballarat Cup cancels out the Miracle Mile win, and I think it does, then where does this New Zealand Cup sit? Because Lenny the Shark brings nothing else, in my opinion, and factually, to the table, apart from his past reputation. Lazarus brings everything you've just seen, including a 10-length New Zealand Cup. I find it impossible, factually, to make a case that Lenny the Shark is a better horse or has had a better season. There are other people who may view this emotionally, and the question for you at home is, what do you think?
7 Group 1s for the season, and only second behind Monkey King, who earned $1.7 million in one season. Let's go back to that great performance on New Zealand Cup Day, where he defeated what's turned out to be a pretty deep field form-wise.
Lazarus kicked away, 3 wide Tiger Tara, 4 out Franco Nelson. He had a look, Mark Purdon. He sent Lazarus for home. Third quarter, 28.4. Lazarus is out by 5 lengths, Tiger Tara, then Smolder and Tiger Tara, but it is all Lazarus clear of Tiger Tara, and once again Lazarus has arisen. It's not easy, but I have to admit, come on baby, you're my greatest.
Around Cullen, who and further back step up. Joe's Dream by a couple, breakdance, Lusty Mac putting in a nice claim, then Juice Brogdon, step up, 100 to go in the Northern Breeders. In front is Joe's Dream on the outside, breakdance, Lusty Mac comes strongly, breakdance hits the front short of the post, breakdance, and Johnny gets another one. Breakdance in second, very tight, Joe's Dream, Lusty Mac.
Well, she had the flashing red light on her hat last week, Craig, when luckless. Amber Hoffman gets her first win at Alexandra Park, collectively through her time with, of course, Graham Anderson and Johnny Cox. She's up over 170 odd wins now, nearly 180, yes. So she's done a great job.
She has, and this mare was unlucky last week, as you said, Greg. She got a lovely trip, got a nice run in the 1-1. Of course, she was off the scene for nearly a year, had a bone chip removed. She's a half to Bonnie Jones, so she's got a pedigree about her, and that was her type of race. What she did do is actually pull very hard in that race, Greg, and I was surprised that she kicked on at the end of it, because she's probably better known as a sprinter than a 2,700 metre horse. Couple missed away, so that aided her chances. But Michael, she's a good mare. She's going to be a very good brood mare because she's got a bit of pedigree about her. But nice for Amber Hoffman to get a win. Obviously, she's a very talented trainer, and to get a win at Alexandra Park would be something very special.
Yeah, I like seeing that too. I mean, you know, the All-Stars could have won that race or one of the bigger stables, and you sort of go, yeah, who cares? I mean, it's really nice. It's a nice highlight for Amber. And again, it goes to show, we talked about Anna Donnelly earlier, so many trainers in this country, given slightly better horse flesh, would have far better results. And that's actually a pretty nice horse. You look at her and you think, you put her around Menangle, she's probably a 150 horse following a good
she's already gone 53.3 here.
Yeah, exactly. So, and as you said, the Bonnie Jones thing we'll see later on really adds some oomph to her page going forward for the catalogues in years to come.
All right, Magnus Benrose, Sires Stakes, Group 1 level again. Al Mac, very, very good in the Caduceus last week. Second row draw over the 1700, perfectly driven by Natalie Rasmussen.
Pure Silk, Shenandoah getting to the outside, then the Shooting Star. Almac, New York Rain bravely tries to rally the inside, but Almac drives to the lead now, coming after it, Shenandoah 50 out. Almac remains unbeaten, a dual Group 1 winner, donned in the Jules colours and wins 3/4, Shenandoah, New York Rain.
She's now 4 from 4, Natalie Rasmussen, and as you predicted, a lot of speed early, staying out of that battle wasn't the worst thing.
No, most definitely, Greg. Once she sort of got back there, I thought, you know, the time to move was about the 11-1200. They just backed it off just slightly. It was a good time to get around, and once she got there, she was a little bit too keen, but, you know, that's just racing experience, so I'm sure she'll get better with that.
You really put it to New York Rain from about the 600 metre mark. At that stage, were you confident that she was travelling well enough to win this Group 1?
I was, Greg, but just probably a little bit worried. She pulled quite hard between the 8 and the 400. That's probably why I just let her get that little bit, you know, right up on it. Maybe she'd settle once she got up there. But yeah, no, I just think just racing tractability. She's got a little bit to learn, but you know, just credit to her. She was good enough to sit out there and still pull a bit and win.
Quinella, of course, for the All-Stars team. Shenandoah, were you concerned at all? Because she's a lovely big filly and she loomed up.
Oh, she did loom up nice. She just done a little bit early, so that probably just took that last bit of sting out of her. She burnt early and I did a bit of mid-race work, so it probably evened it up a little bit. And this girl just probably had a bit better trip.
Jean and Bill Feast. They're having a bit of a time of it in the last 12 months, aren't they?
Oh, they definitely are. They're wonderful owners. You know, they just take the good with the bad, and they're just wonderful people to train for, so couldn't be happier for them.
Yep. Congratulations to you, Nat. You grabbed yourself another Group 1.
Great. Thank you, Greg.
And a New Zealand record time, Craig, just inside, 0.1 of a second inside Dream About Me, but she's clearly put herself up the top of that list.
Oh, she's the top of the fillies list at the moment, Greg. I mean, she's overcome 2 horrible draws in the space of 7 days to win 2 Group 1s, and I thought an inch perfect drive. I mean, she drove Stars Align earlier in the night, very similar, got round at the right time, was outside the leader at the bell when they've gone very hard early on. I mean, it's a very good cross, isn't it? I mean, Lazarus is a better's delight out of a Christian Cullen mare. Same with this one, same with the Loca on Sunday, so just shows you, Michael, that pedigree coming through the cross is going to be on for a long time.
And same as Chase the Dream, who this week heads to Perth, joins the Gary Hall stable, the horse who has actually beaten Lazarus twice in his career. So 2 of those 5 defeats, Chase the Dream heading offshore. She's the best of the fillies at the moment. These things can change. What I would suggest is they can probably go deep into the season with her for 2 reasons. She only had a few starts. It's been a pretty light campaign so far. Secondly, we know she can travel. She copped the treble as we head to the start of the race here, and she's out the back of this. She'll be in the Harness Jewels colours. So there's an early burn. She gets to follow through, as you said, Craig, inch perfect time. She raced at Addington, then travelled to Auckland, so we know she'll cop travel. It'd be very, very tempting to let her cop it into the Breeders' Crown. Clearly she's nominated, she's eligible, she'll be able to head over there. The racing doesn't seem to be hurting her, she's tractable and she can sit parked and win. This all adds up to Breeders' Crown. Go to the Jewels and then go to the Breeders' Crown, take the big money. I'll be willing to say, look, let's miss the Triple Crown, the first one in December, because they aren't worth as much, and concentrate on the fillies races later in the season. She looks inch perfect for Australia.
All right, I want to have a look at the key moment of the race, and this was Brent Mangos coming from a effectively 3 wide position and dropping into the trail. So they turn into the straight here. New York Reigns in front, Craig, and he did cop a suspension for this.
Well, it's Zach Butcher in the trail, and as you pick up the giant hand here, Brent Mangos in the red colours on Purist Silk is looking to get in the gap between the leader and the trailer, and then you can see him angling down. Now Zach has got no options. He's either got to go over the marker pegs or pull back. He takes option number 2, Greg. That gave Brent Mangos the trail, eventually gave him a $550 fine in their Stoke Henry Steward's room later on in the night. So, yeah, a little bit unlucky, the horse Shooting Star running on, but did it change the race? Not really.
Oh, probably those just in behind Almac. That was the only
absolutely
where they were going to posse up.
They may have finished 1 spot closer.
Yeah, that would be all. Okay, let's hear from those beaten horses. Finally, this horse gets some luck, gets a barrier draw, and she went pretty well.
Yeah, she went awesome. We're wrapped with the run. She set up a record in front, and you know, it was Mark and Nat's team. They're pretty hard to beat at times, but yeah, I was wrapped with the run. She stuck it out. She's done all the work in front, and you know, she's looked to the Jewels now, and another barrier draw. She won't be far away.
Mark, that's about as hard as they go early in a race, wasn't it? Drawn where you were, probably on paper looked good, but it didn't turn out that way.
No, they all left inside me, Greg, and we really flew the first sort of 200 metres. I opted to come back and got a reasonable run after that. If I was a place closer, I probably would have been in 3, but she ran 5th and won a creditable race.
Been a busy month, not only for her, but all of your fillies. What's the plan between now and the Jewels?
2 of them will fly home and one will have a few days off. So the Sales Series race is 3 weeks away, May the 19th, and that'll be their next mission.
All right, so still plenty to come, not only that race, of course, but the Harness Jewels as well. Let's lead on to the Brecon Farms Northern Trotting Derby, and Enhine, well, emulates 7 out of the last 10 who've gone from the Sire Stakes into this and won it, and he won it very, very easily.
Sertorius BDKO-san, Habibi enters a place chance on the passing lane, but it's all Enhine, 100 to go. A clinical display as he bags his second derby, and Enhine races away. In fact, he might have had a few gears left. It's very, very tight second to BB Inter.
Well, Ricky May, this outstanding individual's done it again. Another Group 1 for him, and you took luck out of play, got the front, and he just cruised along from there.
Yeah, he raced pretty keen early, but at the end of the day, he's got to be running along because he can stay so well. You know, it makes it pretty hard for the opposition.
28-4, second last quarter. That just to take the sting out of them, that was the plan, but he was going that easy, I suppose. It didn't feel like that.
No, I knew we bowled up the back pretty good, but I mean, if anyone was going to make a move, it was going to make it hard on him. So, you know, he was travelling pretty well all the way, to be fair.
Group 1 trotting races over the last 12 months, Alexandra Park. You haven't let anyone else in, Richard. You've won them all.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty shocked to hear that, but I have to say thanks to Greg and Nina for the drives, because it's been all their horses.
Yep, and this guy's now 10 wins on the board, and the only time he gets beat is when he beats himself, but he's even getting better, isn't he?
Well, he definitely is around here. He's got a few wee hiccups down our way round, but he just felt tremendous tonight.
All right, another Group 1 for you. Well done, mate.
Thanks very much, Greg.
I got bombed again. The Ranger bomb was there. Speeding Spur, Mark Calder, and now him 3 on the bounce to do the size and the Derby double. And we talked about that on the night, the 12-month calendar year that Ricky Mays dominated.
Of all the emergences I've seen in New Zealand harness racing, the most staggering has been Dexter Dunn. Dexter came from absolutely nowhere to win all the premierships and just win all the time. The second most amazing emergence I've seen is Greg and Nina Hope, because they've always been good trainers, but trainers you expected to win races in the country. And we always talk about trotters, Paul Nean and Phil Williamson. 5 years ago, you didn't think Greg and Nina Hope great trotting trainers. Since then, they've produced quite a moment. Who won a Group 1 in Australia, let's not forget, and a Group 1 here, which is very hard to do. Then Monbay, who's just a phenomenon. I believe our best trotter since Laurel Creek. Then they produced Engheim. Now, these horses aren't going to the sales, and they're not $120,000 yearlings. They've got Aoraki in the lower grades. They've just consistently got this machine of producing these good trotters, to the point where if you bought a $100,000 trotter at the sales, you'd be happy enough to say, look, let's give it to Greg and Nina, because they have proven, because the proof can only be on the track, they have proven they're as good at this as Mark Purdon, Tim Butt, Phil Williamson and Paul Nean. That's the proof I'm seeing on the track. It's impossible to argue with, and that's without a couple of other horses whose names I can't even remember, have won races along the way, and they've sort of got open class. They're good trainers of paces, but their trotting record is quite simply unbelievable.
Well, they are good trainers of pace as well. Most O'Connor obviously comes to the list. AG's Watsykes is a nice horse, but I think what it helps too, boys, is with the trotters, they need time, and owning these horses as well gives them the opportunity to say, listen, because I own the horse, I don't have to make a decision where the owner's on my back saying, listen, I want it running through the 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old season. They can sit back and plan their races. Now, I understand, talking to you on Friday night, that this horse will probably have 4 or 5 more races in the next 2 months, and then you have a very quiet season next year. They're only going to target the Anzac Cup, the Road Cup, and maybe one more. So what they have the ability to do as owners of this horse is to say, listen, we'll target a strong 3-year-old season, pull back for a 4-year-old season. They learned a lot with Monbay, Greg. Maybe mistakes from that season going into this season, and they've learned from it.
Well, they understand that these horses just can't keep turning up, and you can't keep going to the well over an extended period, so you've got to give them a break at some stage. Let's hear from the Beaten Brigade. Blair, that was much more like it.
Yeah, for sure, Greg, and sort of driving him a bit more negative tonight sort of helped him, and probably overdrove him his last 2 or 3 runs, and I think driving him soft tonight really worked the Oracle.
Yeah, of course, Paul put the blinds on as well, probably just sharpened him up in the latter part of the race as opposed to having to do that early.
Yeah, that's right, he's done nothing off the gate and got a good soft run the whole way, Greg, and when you run second to a champion like Engheim, you're pretty happy.
Josh, another very creditable performance.
Yeah, no, it was. He tried hard, and you come up against a good horse like Engheim, and you get a soft trip. You always like to run a place, but look, he tried hard. We're very happy with this horse this season.
Yeah, so that's the wrap up from the beaten drivers. Of course, that list you mentioned before, the Dickies in that list as well amongst the trotting trainers.
And John's been training great trotters for 20 or 30 years, but very hard to see Engheim beaten in the Jules, boys. So if he trots all the way, it's his to win, I would thought.
All right, let's move away from the Alexandra Park Rowe Cup Carnival, another very successful one that it has been, and head to the big day in the south. It was Diamond Day, of course, Diamond's Day, and here's, the shining star here in Bonnie Joan. We've already talked about her breeding. This is what she did to them in the Southland Oaks.
Delightful Memphis, Bonnie Joan is holding, and all the way when coming up, it's a neck in front down to the line. Bonnie Joan takes the final.
She's started to put some really top performances on Jace. She showed her usual gate speed and relaxed good after that, but runs along good clips. So great effort today. She had good filly outside and good filly behind her, but she was too good in the end.
She just seems to be getting better and better too with her manners too. I know she can still get a bit racy. She wants to get on with the job, but now she's starting to behave. She could be anything.
Yeah, she's perfect at home, and usually 90% she's good as gold there on race day too, but there's just the odd time when she's a bit fresh, she can play up a bit, but once we're going the race, she's perfect, and yeah, like I said, she's running great race at the moment.
Quite scary to think how fast she can go, given she's gone 52 on her ear before. Certainly with another couple of months on her, how fast can she go?
Oh, well, I guess we'll find out. She's definitely a lot better now than what she was when she was 52, so yeah, hope she can go a bit quicker again, so she'll probably have to be competitive. So yeah, hope she keeps improving, and yeah, great for Father Dan and the Cummings team to get a Southland filly, bred filly home.
Yeah, it's a deep family named after Father Dan, and his brother and his sister are in the ownership's mother, their late mother, so a nice synergy there. Look, when the barrier draw came out, they probably were always going to land that way. Plenty of credit in the runner-up and the third horse as well.
Especially the third horse. I mean, sitting parked out, Sea Swift Joy, a super run. Bonnie Jones, 6 from 7 this season, Greg, and 2 New Zealand records in consecutive starts. Now, over completely different distances too. One over 1700, one over 2700. My concern was, would she settle on the race over 2700? That was answered. She went very quick, but she continued on. The start of the race, one of the race, Delightful Memphis, as expected, dropped to the trail.
She ended up pulling very hard, so her run still had merit, although you probably thought she could have run faster.
I thought the winner pulled hard as well. So that's why they set up in a record run. And Sea Swift Joy, very good. Delishka sat in the 1-1 run, top 4. There was a big margin, 1st to 4th. But for me, what it does is add intrigue into the Jules in a month's time, because we know now that she's a very good star. She's a very good sprinter. She's got outstanding gate speed. She can go forward from the draw. And of course, we had Party On and Spanish Armada trialling yesterday. They ran 1st and 2nd in their trial. This is setting up, Michael, for a really good 3-year-old division. If you chuck in Sea Swift Joy, you chuck in obviously Delightful Memphis, who's been chasing home Spanish Armada all season. There's a bit of depth in the 3-year-old fillies.
What she's got, which some of the others don't have, is blazing gate speed. We saw that when she won at Forbury. Let's not forget the Jules is a fair way away for this crop yet. They've got the Neville Fillies final and the Oaks. So they've got 2 serious races. Here's that gate speed again. And at one of the race at Forbury, I would suggest the way they're driving their horses at the moment, Cran and Dexter, Rakapukarula being the obvious example in the Derby at Auckland. If she can lead around Ashburton, they won't hand up. They'll just keep going. And she'll easily run 52 around Ashburton. And that's really hard to sit parked outside and win. So you're right, intriguing bunch of horses, but they've got more to go this season than the rest. They've got 3 Group 1s to go.
But a month ago, there's no way we were looking at this race like that. We were probably thinking, oh yeah, Party On's going to come back. Yeah. Spanish Armada's got Delightful Memphis's measure. Now, just on Delightful Memphis, Michael, she'll go to the Neville, miss the Oaks, go to the Jules, and then probably an Australian campaign before spelling over there. Sea Swift Joy's back at Malcolm Shins and will continue her campaign for the month.
I find it impossible to back Delightful Memphis to beat these horses anymore, because when she meets the big 2, which has now become a big 3 with Bonnie Jones, she can't run past them. The evidence is overwhelming. She has had numerous chances to run past them and hasn't run past them. So I can't make any case to back her to win any of these races heading forward. I can make an enormous case to back her for a place.
All right, let's hear from those drivers just behind our winner.
Well, Blair, 12 seconds from 20 starts really sums up Delightful Memphis, I suppose, but she's a grand filly still.
Yeah, she's a good filly, Jason. You know, we found one better again today, but, you know, she just pulled too hard through the run and that undone her, and, you know, I knew we were going to be in a bit of strife when it came to business end with how hard she pulled through the run, but to her credit, she had to dig up the lane, but, you know, we come up unstuck, but she's still gone okay.
Well, she was the run of the race, Gordon, after having to sit parked all of the way. Just a wonderful performance by Sea Swift Joy.
Yeah, I didn't have really much option in the finish. As my brother said, like if I wasn't there, I probably wouldn't have got 3rd. So, yeah, big effort sitting out there. There's a lot of wind out there as well. So, yeah, I'm pretty proud of her.
She's gone great, but they're just a wee bit better. But no, she's gone a good race and hasn't disgraced herself.
Yeah, she's pretty good, Delishka, but the other 3 just a bit better on the day. Let's move on to the Supremacy, where Eamon Maguire, well, he's never finished further back than 3rd in his career, and of course one of those 3rds was in the New Zealand Derby, and freshened up for this. This is what he did in the Yalabar Southern Supremacy Stakes.
Maguire, he's away in front by 4 lengths. The Supremacy is over, and down towards the line, and Eamon Maguire's going to bolt in. Gets there by about 4 or 5 at the line. Over Mongolian Storm, recovering. Whitaker grabbed 3rd.
Well, Dexter, he had to do it tough, but he's a very, very good 3-year-old, Eamon Maguire.
He is, Jace. He's had a good season. Obviously, a great derby run up home, and did a bit of work, but really just dominated him today. It was an impressive performance.
Any concerns when Major Hippie seemed to be getting away with some cheap sectionals in front when you moved? We got there nice and easy?
Yeah, we got a card into it, and obviously Nip parked. No real worries. He's pretty versatile, my fellow. He's got awesome speed, but he can do a bit of work as well, which was shown. So, I always felt pretty comfortable, and then obviously down the back we were travelling pretty good, and Major Hippie started just to drop the bit a bit, so we pressed on, and he did it easy in the end.
He just seems to be getting better and better, and he's already run 151, of course. So I guess he's going to be a major player on Jules Day.
Yeah, he is. He's mixed it with the big guns, and shown himself to be very credible against him. So they'll press on, and be a good top off for the season for them.
Yeah, so a really good performance by Eamon Maguire, equalling the track record held by Highview Tommy, who won $1 million.
Well, he's a very, very good horse. I mean, he's got a good horse's record now, hasn't he, Greg? And he's third in the Derby. He's coming on at the right time, heading towards the Jules. It's a very strong 3-year-old brigade, but Graham Anderson's doing a really good job.
The Art Majors, he likes those.
Doesn't he? Titan Banner, of course, all-star musician, this bloke. I think he's a great star, and it surprised me actually. The bookmakers gave you a decent price, $240 after running third in the Derby. Runs out of the race, Greg. I thought Mongolian Storm good. Whitaker very unlucky, got held up at the wrong time. This horse will now head to the Sophomore on the 19th of May. I think it's a $40,000 race at Addington, Greg. So that'll be his type of race because no Group 1 winners allowed into that event.
It'll be interesting to see where he ends up, because obviously with Titan Banner they gave him Southern campaigns, then moved him north to All Stars, and then he came to Auckland, then went home again because he got injured. But a horse like him, into his 4-year-old season, his rating's going to get very high very quickly. And they're going to run out of races down there.
His future lies in Australia as a 4-year-old. I think that's where he'll end up.
Or would you suggest they do the same thing? Maybe say, we'll train him up for a couple down here, try and pick up a win, and then send him to All Stars or whoever, and they can campaign him for those other races. But it'd be a real shame to lose him to New Zealand. And it would be a shame to lose him to the Deep South, because I love seeing these horses retained in the South, but I get more of a feeling that the days of the Franco Ledgers and the Howard Bromax, who stayed there for a while, might be starting to disappear, and that's a little bit disappointing if it's a factor. But in saying that, I'm not sure that the Cup races down there are catering to those horses anymore either.
Let's have a look at the start of the race, the all-important start, and he got away nicely off his second row draw. Unusual that an All-Stars runner in front would capitulate like that.
Yeah, maybe he just had a hard run the week before. Major Hippie finds the front. That's Whitaker getting there first in the white colours.
And you'd think, perfect spot for him.
Perfect spot to be behind the All-Stars runner and Major Hippie. But as you said, Greg, he was a spent force a long way from home. Maybe they just went a bridge too far. They had to go last week to get a start into this race, and maybe that took the edge off. I'm not making excuses for him because he just wasn't up to it on the day. But what he did do is take Whitaker back at a vital time. Wouldn't have won the race, but may have finished one closer.
Yeah, so let's hear from those beaten drivers.
We had every show and got a pretty good run in transit, but the other horse was just far too superior today.
Yeah, pretty disappointing really, because he travelled actually super, and I would have loved just to crack at them just to see where he, what he ended up against. We know how good Eamon Maguire is, but we think a lot of our fella, and yeah, the race was sort of over by the time I got out, but to his credit, he's run home real good.
I was really happy with his run. It was quite encouraging, so we'll just see what happens next week.
Yeah, he went massive. He, I was really wrecked with him. He just let himself down at the start. He just had a gallop again, and he didn't lose too much, but it was just enough to he had to chase, and then it was hard from there. But he went good.
Yeah, look, he travelled good down the back, and then when Dex put the foot down again, and we went from on the bridle to all done in a couple of strides. So we'll get him home and take a couple of bloods and reassess.
All right, well, it's always a deep race, as we know. Changeovers won the Supremacy, gone on and won a New Zealand Cup. Of course, last year, Evan Rocks did the business and has won himself an Easter Cup. Okay, we've just watched a couple of features there from Southland, and the same driver doing the business, Dexter Dunn. So we've got some viewer feedback around this from none other than the man with the steely dangly things himself, Graham Bruton. Why, after Dexter adopted that American layback style 2 years ago, to cut down the wind resistance, have other drivers not tried it? Now, there have been a couple that have. Nathan Purden's done it on a couple of occasions, with success as well. But yeah, it makes for an interesting discussion, this.
Well, I think it's a youthful thing. I mean, I think the younger guys, it's easy to change a style. Like a younger person can learn a different language quicker than an older person. Guys who are driving in their 50s or 60s aren't going to change their driving style. So here he is.
Driving Royal Shine. This was a good example of it.
Yeah, and he's sitting back. Now, in Australia, the stewards have moved against this. Now, not as far back there. He's not too far back there, but the stewards have moved right, because Chris Alford, who also went to the World Drivers' Championships, and that's where a lot of this comes from, was leaning right back in the car. And the steward said, this is a health risk. This is a danger risk, because you're getting out the back of the car, and therefore the horse behind you has to be further back than it should be, because it can only go as far back as your head. So the stewards moved against it a little bit. You're not going to see, without being rude, the older guys, and I class myself as an older guy these days, so we're not going to see those sort of guys adopting this sort of stuff. I think some of the younger guys, because it suits that sort of sulky, yeah, I'm not entirely sure it's everybody's cup of tea. You do see a lot more of the young guys these days, guys, get them on the tight lines. We see a lot more tight line racing, comes through Menangle, the Luke McCarthy's, the Andy McCarthy's, get them up, which looked like they were pulling in the old days when guys, Peter Wolford and set up really straight in the sulky, but I think that tight line racing's become more popular because we're not easing off in the middle stages of a races as much as we used to.
I tell you what, I actually saw on Sunday, and I hadn't seen coverage of it before, and congratulations for Trackside to show it, but was Cardigan Bayes winning the New Zealand
63.
Cup. 63. Yep. The leading driver in that race, I think it might have been Bob Nine, he was sitting basically in front of the horse. He was sitting that crouched. He was on the tail of the horse. Something I hadn't seen because I hadn't seen the coverage before, and I was talking to a few of the older drivers, and they said, well, this was quite regular.
Yep.
Now, we see the guys sitting back. They were sitting forward. Wind resistance back in the 60s. I mean, everyone's been trying to do it.
The idea with the American sulkies and sitting back isn't just wind resistance, it's counterbalancing the weight of the horse. So they're carrying the driver, so they're hoping that the centre point for the driver's weight and the horse's power will meet in the centre over the wheels, and that will tow it through. So therefore it's physics.
Yeah.
But also, like as I said, you're not going to get guys who have driven one way their entire life. Colin DeFilippi sits very straight back in the sulky, as does Maurice McKendry. These guys aren't going to start leaning back.
You actually like to see him doing that because he appears to be bolted.
Also, I think it's also with your height as well. A guy like Brad Williamson, who's 6'2", it's going to be very difficult for him to be leaning out the back of the sulky because of his height.
Well, if he did, it'd put the horse in the trail a length and a half behind him.
Well, picking up on what you said before, Barbara Scott, who's the chairperson in WA, she said it's driving outside the confines of the sulky.
Yes.
Therefore, I think Kyle Harper and maybe Michael Grantham, she's severely reprimanded them. So yeah.
Nice to get some feedback from you,
good on you, Broody.
Feedback always welcomed here on the box seat.
Yep, certainly is. Let's go to the two-year-old feature from Diamond's Day down there at Invercargill and Aloka. Well, he's beautifully bred, paid $95,000 for him out of Nevermore, this one. And whilst he didn't win by a big margin, he was still very, very good and wider out. His stablemate, it's got a future as well. His name is Star Commander.
Class and Star Commander further out. Aloka holding still that neck margin of the line. Just, I think, Aloka.
Well, Blair, it was only a half-head win, but I get the feeling it was still pretty comfortable.
Yeah, he was. He's still doing it good at the finish, and I know the other one got close to me, but I was holding him the whole way up the straight, and he got there still going okay.
And it was a nice run in these conditions, 2:43, breaking the track record, so you have to be happy with that.
Yeah, for sure. Cold day, and it's quite a strong breeze up the straight for them, and you can never shirk the task when you got one of Mark Natalie sitting outside you and behind you. So to his credit, he held on well and onwards and upwards.
It was close to the finish, but Blair come back and said he was always quite comfortable he's going to win. So he didn't knock him around, which is pretty important. He still got home to the last half in 56, and when you travel down the day before and got a trip home tomorrow, you don't want to go any faster than you have to. So. Even though it was a bit close, but I'm pleased he won without having a real gut buster.
He's got some pretty important assignments in the next probably 2 to 6 weeks, really. I guess all full steam ahead for those.
Yeah, hopefully it tightens him up, and it'll ensure him a start now in the Harness Jewels. And he's also got a big sales race in a fortnight for him, so it's the main goal. It's a couple 100,000. So look, if we can get him cherry right for that, and look, there's some other very good 2-year-olds around the country know that. So look, if we can get him as best we can, he's got a good chance in those.
Yeah, you got some news through from Jason Broad as well. 5 track records broken down there, and a couple of New Zealand records. So the track was in wonderful order.
It was on Aloka. I thought, the race was very formulaic at the start. We predicted he would lead, and there was no second race. They were dropped an Indian file, but he's a pretty good horse, Greg. And congratulations to Blair Orange too. I think he got 150 wins for the season, driving at Invercargill on Sunday. He's been very consistent driving down there, and I thought the runner-up was good, set parked out for the last lap, Ashley Lopez. And Star Commander, you were talking about him last week on the show as one to watch, very brave into third. I think the format of the race will carry on into the 2-year-old races into the future.
Yep, for sure, Craig. We need to move on to the Country Cups final, and you spoke about Howard Bromack before. Trainer and driver of that horse was Kirk Larson, and he did the business here with a pretty royally bred Better Ops.
The inside, Luciano the outside. Groomsman coming across wheels and wider out, having a rave up. Better Ops on the inside, hits the front here from Glenferrie. Better Ops, Glenferrie Classic.
Well, Kurt, it was a well-deserved win there by Better Ops. He had a great run.
Yeah, everything worked perfect. Jace, he made a flyer from the stand, and I was sort of pretty keen to lead, but saying that he does come off their back good, and the other horse was pretty keen to lead, so. But we got a good run. He probably should have won by more, but he actually knocked off a bit, the big bugger. So yeah.
He's only had 15 starts, and as you say, he's quite a big horse, so still a bit of improvement to come, I would have thought.
Yeah, next year probably you'd like to think he'd be better again. He can stay all day, and he's starting to develop a bit of speed, which he didn't have earlier on, and he's starting to get the all-round game. He was a bit awkward as a young horse, and even today around the bends a couple of times he was a wee bit awkward, but he will get better.
And around $13,000 in the bin, very handy for a Harness Jewels tilt, I'm sure, in 5 weeks.
Yeah, well, he's sort of up there, so he's probably not up to a few of them, but being at Ashburton, and there's that other race now that they've brought in, that's probably an ideal target for him. So yeah, so we'll keep him ticking along and see how we go.
Yeah, magnificent day there, marred by the fall in race number 10, of course, where Peter Hunter was involved in that and has spent the last 3 or 4 days in hospital. News again through from Jason Broad that he appears to be on the mend. He's had a whole lot of well-wishers appear outside of hospital visiting hours, I understand, as well. But it wasn't a nice incident. Blair Orange was tied up in that as well. And unfortunately, the horse Louis had to be put
down, which is very sad. It could have been a lot worse, though, Greg, and they called it off after about 600 metres, and other than Peter Hunter, a few grazes and a few scrapes, but other than that, not too bad. Just on Better Ops, he's a very good horse. Actually, back in October, he beat Eamon Maguire at Gore, so he's gone through that phase of he hadn't won a race for a while, but the ability was always there, and Kirk placed him right on the day. He'll head to Addington in a fortnight's time to take on a premier race.
Right, as we go to a break, just on a bit of a sad note, Michael Messiter, who'd been known to many in the North Island region, passed away over the weekend. He drove 16 winners, was involved in the game for his entire life, left school, went to work for the late Kevin Holmes and developed his skills there. He actually trained a winner, Soul to Squeeze, who you would have seen at Cambridge back in 2011. Our thoughts are certainly with his family at this time. And your home's straight in your box seat. Don't forget about this sale, and you can go to Alabar this Sunday 1 till 3. They have an inspection of their weanlings that will be for sale. Let's get into our review of what's happened across the Tasman. Lumineer, you mentioned this horse last week, Michael.
Yeah, this is a good horse, taking on Sicario. There's Sicario wide on the track, got too far back, would not have mattered. Lumineer, son of sports writer, unbeaten, smashes them in the APG. Invited to the Harness Jewels, trainer Ange McDowell said, look, thanks for the invite, but I don't know enough about it. I'm not coming over there. I think he's the equal of the 2-year-olds I've seen in New Zealand so far this season. Very, very good horse, Lumineer APG final. Later in the night, Lenny the Shark, as you mentioned, back and very good. Very, very good in the Bull Eye Cup. Led, attacked by Tiger Tara, 147 and change, so he probably hasn't broken the clock for a modern day Menangle win, but an outstanding, strong, typical Lenny performance. He's heading towards the Len Smith Mile. Maybe they'll look at a Queensland campaign. Not bad in behind Field Marshal. Thought did a pretty good job. Good enough to suggest he can win races over there. Anything for Love is the horse in the pink colours, the Triton colours. This is the Carousel final, beating Motu Premier. So there's Mark outside the leader. And Anything for Love, very, very similar horse, guys, to Suave Stewie Lombo.
Now, this is the horse that didn't turn down an invite, said he wouldn't come to the Jewels, and now has changed his mind.
Yeah, now they want to come to the Jewels, but unfortunately the invite's already gone to Mr. Mojito. So he's a very nippy horse around Menangle. He'll be, a good, consistent free-for-all performer there. Here's the old boy, Avanova. That's
he was retired, Michael.
They retired him, threw away the hopples. In fact, they didn't, because he didn't have any. He's free-legged. There's Huey Grant in front, and Avanova overpowers him. Huey pretty game, but Avanova proving he is a class horse. Albion Park last Saturday night.
Yeah, and they went a terrific time in there. And congratulations to Murray Howard and the Benchmark getting Group 3 success in the Bulli Trotters Cup as well. Did you know that it's only 31 sleeps to the Harness Jewels?
New Zealand's top drivers are out to snatch the spoils from the speed capital of the South, Ashburton Raceway. Tune in to TAB Trackside June 3rd for your coverage of the Harness Jewels.
A bit of thought's gone into that from Marianne Twentyman and the team there, but we always look forward to the Harness Jewels. And, well, let's go back and have a look. As you know, we've been having a look at our historics from the 10 years of the Jewels so far, and this, boys, was a demolition job.
Yeah, one of the races of the Jewels, and this was the race where we saw people say, well, Cambridge can be competitive. You can't just lead and win. Just go out there and run faster, run harder, crush them. Here's Smolder back in the day. We know what he's done since. He's turned into a great horse, and one of the best Jewels performances I've seen. Maybe, guys, the greatest Jewels performance, but we'll judge that in a couple of weeks' time. By the way, made a mistake earlier. Lenny the Shark won on 149 and change, not 147 and change. Boys, thanks for picking that up.
Yep, no problem at all. Next week we'll have a look at the 2-year-old fillies, but we've got plenty ahead harness racing-wise, of course. And let's have a look at around the nation where we head. Marawa 2, second meeting them for the week, of course. 5:24 the start time there, 9-race card, including the Wairarapa Cup there. Alexandra Park, 10-race card, $25,000 Haradi Trotters Northern Oaks. Only half a dozen, and that's a bit disappointing. But anyway, 5:56, that'll start there. Addington Raceway will be on as well. $25,000 pick 6 there, and a good 2-year-old race. 10-race card, 5:21 will start there. Further south, we head to Gore, 12 races there, 11:13 on Saturday, and Rangiora, we will be there on Sunday, $25,000 pick 6 there, 11-race card, 11:13. All right, let's have a look at the video for the week with Craig Thompson, and the horse's name, Craig, is Six Diamonds.
Yeah, have a look at this horse, through back on the fence in the red colours here. It was in the race that Major Hippie won 2 weeks ago. He actually went round in the abandoned race on Sunday, this horse Six Diamonds, and of course they pulled it out after 400 metres. But I thought it was a tragedy beaten here, boys. He ends up 3 back, he got pushed back, 4 back, gets out the red colours here, runs to the centre of the track and doesn't get much of a crack at them. Now he goes to Saturday afternoon at Gore. He gets a nice draw at barrier number 2. Brad Williamson will take the drive. He's got a bit of gate speed, he's got a good draw, and I've actually made him the best bet of the week for the box seat this week.
All right, that's good. That's why we've got him on the show.
Yeah, I went for Coalpecker for me, first at Alexandra Park. Good to see these 2-year-old races getting off the ground. And Gregory, bubble gum for you at Addington.
Yeah, B Hill May, very good last time I thought, and building towards a win. So a relatively quiet week, the calm before the storm, because of course then we go Premier at Addington. Yep. We'll also next week talk about the Harness Jewels, the 10-year, we've had 10 years of it, so now we need to consider, should they change a few things?
Yeah, absolutely, and of course talk a lot about the 4-year-old markets, the 2-year-old markets are out at the moment as well. So enjoy the show tonight, boys. Friday night at Auckland, you're at Addington. Review all the action next Wednesday.
Of course, the one horse that we will be talking about, a Piccadilly Princess, as she's known in Australia, winning all that money over there, and she's on the borderline at the moment.
I think the Jewels has now got to the stage where we can have conversations about how do we make it better. I think it's great. Can we make it better? Some of the big names aren't going to be there this year. How do we get more big names there? Also next week we're going to talk about a tribute to a wonderful trotter, a horse who maybe we didn't see the best of, but when we did see his best, it was pretty darn special.
That was the big bloke, of course, Master Lavros. That's been your box seat. Hope you've enjoyed it. See you in 7 days.